Get ready to shop Lowe's Black Friday Doorbuster deals to save $150 on a 30-inch Blackstone griddle, now $299. Plus, choose a Whirlpool top-load washer or Midea top freezer refrigerator for just $398. These limited-time doorbuster deals go fast, so get holiday ready today at Lowe's. We help, you save. Valid 11/28 through 12/1. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details.
Paid for by government. It's here, our biggest savings week of the year. Black Friday and Cyber Monday have been rolled into one massive savings event, now through December 3rd at government.com. For a limited time, enjoy buy more, save more site-wide deals on a huge selection of gold and silver coins, plus free shipping on every order. And don't forget about our doorbuster deals. Starting December 1st through December 3rd, our Cyber Monday has incredible doorbuster deals. It's the perfect chance to build your vault or shop for unforgettable holiday gifts. Choose from American gold and silver eagles, brilliant gold and silver bars, ancient treasures, and classics like the Morgan Silver Dollar. There's something for every collector. And remember, every order ships free, delivered straight to your door, guaranteed. Don't wait. These deals won't last long. Visit govmint.com for great deals on gold and silver. That's govmint.com. Government.com.
Hey, warmer from the low! Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by a good friend of ours, Rob Donaldson, who does great work with the show/podcast Rob's Best Bets. We're going to chat it up with him about what he's all seen here in the first nearly month of the season. Additionally, we're going to be diving in with him about the few games that we're seeing on Monday, ways that he takes a look at progression, regression, some of the things that he's going to be looking for the next few weeks with conference play starting up for a lot of these schools as well, which that's hard to believe. And then in the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Monday as we hit some bank shots. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, there's they mean does not matter. So as per usual, please do send these into the timeline, and the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, everything is powered by Better. That is BETR. Better is making it better to be able to get into the game by making it easier than ever before, because all you need to do is go to BETR.app. You type in the promo code VSIMPOD, VSIMPOD. That gets you $10 free to be able to play some daily fantasy. Just take a look at a player, take a look and think whether or not he's going to go over or under a stat line. If you're in jurisdiction that allows, you've got money lines and spreads that are available as well, and you're all good to go. And we're all good to go to take a look back at what was a small but fun college basketball Sunday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
What games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about? Here is the rowdy recap.
The lone ranked team in action got a pretty big scare. Texas Tech, they do get the win over Wyoming, but 76-72 the final, as for Texas Tech, just 4 of 17 from three-point range. JT Toppin once again delivered the goods, 27 points, 9 rebounds, but he had some spotty play with regards to the guards. Tyree Bryant, Donovan Atwell, they combined to go 1 of 8 from 3, a combined 10 points. Then Luan Watts off the bench was able to save their bacon, 19 points, and for Texas Tech, just 18 of 30 at the free throw line, that's an issue, and for Wyoming, they went a flawless 13 of 13 at the charity stripe, but Texas Tech did win the turnover battle 13-10, so that allowed them to be able to persevere and get the job done. You saw St. Joe's get the win, but no cover against Princeton, 60-58 the final, as the Princeton offense just not the same this season, and St. Joe's looking very suspect with their three-point shooting right now. 4 of 23 from three-point range for them. Princeton, a little bit of rebound here, 11 of 30 from the outside. You had Jack Stanton be able to go 4 of 8 from the outside for 14 points. Jackson Hickey, he was able to supply the team with 20 points. For St. Joe's, they win this game because they win the rebound battle 35-26, and Princeton went 3 of 7 at the free throw line. And you lose by 2. That looms very, very large. And for Merrimack, it's been a little bit of a, shall we say, rough start to the season for them on defense, but they found it against LaSalle, 66-60 the final. They forced LaSalle into 19 turnovers. They themselves only had 10, and for Merrimack, they go 10 of 28 from three-point range, while LaSalle, they went just 4 of 15 from the outside. So Nice quality win out of them. The Citadel continues to just be rough. 69-41. Presbyterian just playing at pretty much the slowest pace in all of college basketball. Just put these guys into handcuffs. As for the Citadel, they go 6 of 13 at the free throw line. Citadel loses a rebound battle 36-24. And looks like it's going to be a long year for them after they went winless within the conference a season ago. Both William and Mary were able to overcome Old Dominion 88-75. The final. Old Dominion's been a little bit of a disappointment for me. 9 of 34 from three-point range. And where Old Dominion is supposed to shine is on the glass. They lose that rebound battle 39-27 as Tonde Vahil Vasasi be able to supply 25 points for William and Mary. They go just 5 of 22 from three-point range, but did a nice job grabbing second and third chances, and they won 25 of 30 at the free throw line. UTSA, meet the Roadrunners are having a rough start to the season, 82-58. You saw South Alabama absolutely take it to them. South Alabama actually loses the turnover battle 11-10 too, but for UTSA, they win 14 out of 56 from three-point range. South Alabama is inducing teams to take threes. South Alabama has led opponents to take over 60% of their field goal attempts from three, and UTSA just could not knock them down. And for Appalachian State, they just have not been able to knock down too many wins. They lose to UNC Asheville by kind of 67-55 for Appalachian State, 6 of 25 from three, and 7 of 15 at the free throw line. That was very, very costly, as UNC Asheville, they went just 3 of 18 from three themselves, but 22 out of 27 at the free throw line. That is certainly going to cut it. And then Maine, they have played 9 games this far this season. How about 65 points or fewer in every one of them? Siena does not get the cover, but they do get a win by a count of 64-60. As for Maine, they go 7 of 16 from three, but they really slowed this thing down. They lost the turnover battle 11-10. For Siena, just 2 of 12 from three, but 16 out of 24 from the free throw line. 7 of 15 for Maine. We saw some really bad free throw shooting on Sunday, and we saw some great defense from West Virginia. There was a, I believe, 16-minute stretch in this game where they held Mercyhurst to a combined 7 points, 70-38. They absolutely take it to Mercyhurst. For West Virginia, only 5 of 18 from three-point range. Your lone two guys that were able to get to 10-plus points. Chance Moore off the bench with 11, and Amir Jenkins with 10 off the bench, but they dominate the boards, win the rebound battle 44-27, and Mercyhurst went 1 of 8 at the free throw line. They quite literally shot better from everywhere except for the free throw line. That just blows my mind. You've got to be able to knock down your free throws. We talked about that a few days ago with Nate Horning, better known as Shaggy Betts, but that was a little bit of a rough one for Mercyhurst, to say the least, and this was a nice solid win for Yale on the road, 77-74. They do not get the cover, though. Things got a little bit overwhelming late as both teams go 17 out of 22 at the free throw line, and for Yale, they actually lose the rebound battle 31-25, but they go 6 of 17 from three with Riley Fox being foxy off the bench. 23 points. He helped Yale be able to get the job done in that one, and also being able to get the job done. St. Bonaventure on the road as an underdog against Florida Atlantic, 70-65 final in this game. As for St. Bonaventure, they go 6 of 14 from three-point range. They continue to get good production out of Frank Mitchell down low, 13 points, 11 rebounds, and for Florida Atlantic, just 8 of 27 from three-point range, and Florida Atlantic, they just did not do a great job in terms of taking care of the ball. 13 turnovers. St. Bonaventure, they themselves had 12. So the Bonnies, they do find a way to be able to get a nice road win, and right now a candidate for early most disappointing team in major college basketball that is not named Loyola Chicago, because man, Loyola Chicago's been bad, but Charleston, losing to Belmont is understandable. Losing 96-73 is not great, and Charleston's dealt with injuries. Mr. Dean was out of this game, and so was Kobe Duggan, but they've gotten back Connor Hickman. He gave the team 20 points, but nobody around him stepped up. For Belmont, they win the rebound battle 41-37. Belmont 13 out of 28 from three-point range as Tyler Lundblade, 4 of 9 from three, 18 points. Long winding road for him, and he finds a way to be able to help produce and get the job done out there. And then also being able to get the job done, UC Irvine, zot the Anteaters, 72-63 winners over San Jose State. As for UC Irvine, they actually lose a rebound battle 43-41, uncharacteristic of them. San Jose State goes 9 of 24 from three-point range, but San Jose State entered in the day, allowing teams to shoot 72% from two-point range. Wasn't quite that bad in this one, but 26 out of 49 for UC Irvine. They did a nice job winning from within, so Irvine does find a way to persevere. They get that win and cover, so that was a quality one for them. And then this was also quite quality. Colgate, a minty fresh cover against Fordham, 72-62 the final is. For Fordham, the defense has been rock solid. 3-point shooting is right now ailing, 4 of 18 from 3-point range. And for Colgate, you were able to have a nice performance here from Andrew Alexeo, who was able to give you 16 points, 8 boards as a little bit of stretch guy, was able to go 2 of 5 from 3-point range. Colgate as a whole, they go 9 of 26 from the outside, so very rock solid performance out there. And if you're taking a look at trend-wise, what we're getting in college basketball, over the last 7 days, we have certainly been seeing the favorites coming through. Last 7 days, favorites are hitting at about 57.5% on the spread, 189, 140, and 5. Meanwhile, the under is hitting at about 56%, 183 unders to 143 overs. Overall for the season, the under rate is 51.1%, 626 unders, 598 overs, and favorites are hitting at about 51.3%, 627, 596, and 16 against the spread. So that's where we're seeing college basketball right now, and that's what we're all getting trend-wise. Coming up next, how about if we do chat it up with our good friend Rob Donaldson, who does tremendous work over at Underdog Fantasy, and so much more right here on Cuscus with myself, Xavier, and now part of the Peace and Family Podcast.
Paid for by government. It's here. Our biggest savings week of the year. Black Friday and Cyber Monday have been rolled into one massive savings event. Now through December 3rd at government.com. For a limited time, enjoy buy more, save more site-wide deals on a huge selection of gold and silver coins, plus free shipping on every order. And don't forget about our doorbuster deals. Starting December 1st through December 3rd, our Cyber Monday has incredible doorbuster deals. It's the perfect chance to build your vault or shop for unforgettable holiday gifts. Choose from American gold and silver eagles, brilliant gold and silver bars, ancient treasures, and classics like the Morgan Silver Dollar. There's something for every collector. And remember, every order ships free, delivered straight to your door, guaranteed. Don't wait. These deals won't last long. Visit govmint.com for great deals on gold and silver. That's govmint.com. Government.com.
Are you looking to get an inside edge this college basketball season? Well, VSiN experts use CBB Analytics, the most comprehensive college basketball analytics platform in the world. See injury impact, on and off data, clutch time performance metrics, first versus second half splits, and so much more. Utilize the promo code of VSiN, that is VSIN, to get $30 off and find your betting edge over at cbbanalytics.com. That is cbbanalytics, all one word.com. For anyone that is new to VSiN, well, I wish you a friendly hello. This is an attention to anyone that is new to VSiN because you're able to get some free stuff with our daily newsletter. It's a great way to catch up on everything that's happening in the sports betting world. It's delivered straight to your inbox every single morning. VSiN's newsletter offers picks, data, strategies for the day's betting menu, and so much more. Sign up for free today over at VSiN.com/newsletter. That's VSIN.com/newsletter, and start receiving your free newsletter tomorrow morning. That is VSIN.com/newsletter. Stay ahead of the game and bet smarter with VSiN. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Cuscus with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. It's always great to be joined by this man. We've got Rob Donaldson aboard. He does a tremendous job with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets, taking a look at this amazing game that we all know and love of college basketball. Also does a great job on the football front. You're able to catch him on Underdog Fantasy. You're able to catch him on youtube.com/Rob Donaldson and the old Twitter/X at RobDFB altogether. And Rob, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Greg. And obviously, we're coming off kind of the tail end of Feast Week. It was fantastic with all the MTEs. And here on Sunday, as a Steelers NFL fan, I'm glad that we're recording this podcast because they're getting blown out. It's terrible. And I'm glad that we're talking about my favorite sport in college basketball here.
Oh, absolutely. And my goodness, we saw ourselves a heck of a week with regards to all these tournaments. And how much do you want to bank on perhaps teams overreacting a little bit too much to a small sample size? Because there's a lot of people that hadn't watched much college basketball whatsoever up until we saw those tournaments out there in lovely Las Vegas, Maui, what have you. And I think that a lot of people could think, oh, this team is the greatest thing since sliced bread because they saw 2 or 3 games. And I think now is a time where we can really start to bank on regression and overreactions. Yes.
100%. And I think there's kind of scalability when you're talking about, these tournaments, how certain teams performed in those tournaments. Because, for example, I think Michigan is kind of going to be the poster boy of this, where they're going to be laying some insane numbers in spots where they're the obviously superior team in the early goings of conference play and in their non-con slates the rest of the way here, especially in the short term. And I think that's when you want to bet against kind of the hype of Michigan, because yes, do they have the ability to beat Gonzaga by what felt like, 70 points? Absolutely, but that's not the reality of a game-by-game scenario. We've already seen Michigan struggle against TCU and struggle against even Middle Tennessee State in the first half of that ball game as well. Wake Forest came down to the wire where they should have lost that game. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of teams that kind of fall into that boat. And I think there's some teams that performed really well in MTEs that people aren't really reacting to the level that I think they should in terms of a positive sense. And for that reason, I think there's a lot of value in kind of both directions there.
Yep, absolutely. And I do think that is something very much to be noting. And just what did you make out of Michigan and what they were able to do in Las Vegas? Because I think two things are very, very true. If they're laying like 100 billion points, it might be going a little bit too far. But I don't think that there's any denying that this looks like one of the more dominant teams in all of college basketball. And that was a display for the ages, in my opinion.
100%. You can't just wax Gonzaga the way that they waxed Gonzaga
and Auburn,
Brian Dutcher, and Auburn and San Diego State. It just kind of felt like it was so many different games against different variations of teams. It was so definitively great that you have to look at that and say, Michigan, you might be number one in terms of my eye test, in terms of the hierarchy of college basketball as it currently stands right now. Now, at the same time, when you're talking about spreads and talking about the betting front, I do 100% always going to say this and always going to believe in this. Spreads exist for a reason. People want you to look at that Michigan results from that MTE and say, hey, Michigan can do this against every single team, especially kind of these much, much inferior opponents. But that's where you take the points because these lines are going to be hyper overinflated. But yes, I do think that Michigan deserves all the praise that they're getting right now in a real basketball sense.
Absolutely. And you're a man that's out there in the Midwest, Rob. I am someone that's from the great state of Wisconsin. Just what do we make out of this start to the season for the Big Ten? Because Michigan is getting all the love, but the current number one is not Michigan. That would actually be Purdue. Michigan State, they have been very impressive on defense. They're not getting quite as much attention because it's a little bit less flash and it's a little bit more, shall we say, rough and tumble with the way that they've held down Arkansas, they hold down Kentucky, and then they absolutely take the air out of the ball against North Carolina. We've seen Nebraska go undefeated to begin the season. List goes on and on. Iowa, it's been really a renaissance, in my opinion, for the Big Ten, sans Oregon.
Yeah, sans Oregon. I love you throwing in that because absolutely that was my takeaway as well, is of all the great coaches, of all the good ball coaches. I want to say this, I kind of use this verbiage of ball coach in a way of excluding kind of the NBA type of guys who are in the college game or the really good recruiting types like a John Calipari, for example, that accumulate a lot of talent, but good ball coaches like a Ben McCollum, like a Darian DeVries, like a Dusty May, Tom Izzo, Matt Painter, Eric Musselman. This league has a bunch of them. And of all the ball coaches, I think really kind of disappointed the most in this early goings, it was Oregon. But if Oregon is your floor with Dana Altman potentially in the Big Ten, your conference is in a very, very good position. And I do think that, we're talking about teams that aren't getting, I think, the deserved type of their MTE results. You look at that USC squad that is now 7-0, has already been battle tested in overtime against, yes, it was Troy, but it was still a good Troy team. And then to do what they did in Maui so definitively with a good head coach in Eric Musselman in year two, I think those are results that you can't just overlook here in the early goings of the season because that might be betting value down the stretch in an immediate sense. And yeah, Iowa's been playing fantastic. Indiana, outside of a kind of a scare against Incarnate Ward, has looked fantastic. The Big Ten in general right now just kind of feels like it's surging upwards, and that is really good for a conference that hasn't performed well on the national stage in a lot of national tournaments in recent years.
Yep, I am right there with you, and it's going to be a lot of fun to take a look at this conference in the coming weeks as we've got Big Ten conference play that's actually coming up within the next 48 to 72 or so hours, as we do have Rob Donaldson, who does great work with Underdog Fantasy, joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops. And what do you make of the fact that we've got these conference games coming up in the next few days? Because it just doesn't feel like they ever have the same tenor as these games that they happen after Christmas, after New Year's, and it just feels a little bit odd that we're going to be getting conference play not just in the Big Ten, but in like the Metro Atlantic, the Horizon League, the Big West, a lot of different conferences here in very early December.
It's almost like, hey, this is what conference expansion has led to. It's also just the fact that we have flown by the month of November in the college basketball season. It feels like we're still figuring these teams out, and now they're going to have to figure themselves out against opponents that are going to have to potentially see them, not once, but twice in a given season. And so these games do carry a lot of meaning, and I do think that when you're talking about just conference versus conference opponents, which we're going to see right there on Tuesday starting off, I think there's a different element at play where it's not just how do you compare this caliber team versus this caliber team. There's recruiting tie-ins, there's coaching overlap, there's also the idea of a new coach coming into a league that already has this kind of set precedent, and how does that new head coach disrupt what's going on? I think all of those things are things you have to take into account, and we're going to get a heavy dose of it right away here and starting this week.
And how are you going to be able to gauge some of those games that involve teams that are just complete opposites? Because I mentioned it with the top teams in the Big Ten. You've got a Michigan State team that has been so dominant on defense. You've got a bunch in Michigan that has been so tremendous on offense. Purdue doesn't play fast, but they shoot it really well from three-point range. For Nebraska, they've been doing a little bit more win from within with rink mass. I think that there's just so many great elements to take into account and so many clashes of styles as well.
Yeah, not to mention when you're going on the road and you're talking about high major competition, the road atmosphere is something that we haven't truly seen yet in a lot of games, because a lot of teams have been playing these neutral sites at Madison Square Garden for their headliners, or Kansas City, or in Maui, or Las Vegas, where the crowds really aren't an element that you have to contend with. And all of a sudden, what happens when these teams like a Michigan or like a team like a Duke, for example, that's playing really good basketball? How do they react when they hit a true road game for the very first time? That is always an element that in this sport in particular carries so much weight. And I can't wait to be back in those unranked 3.5-point dogs against a ranked opponent in the top 15. And everybody's flocking to the ranked side because of the good ball, quote unquote, that they're playing. But the reality is, Greg, and you know this just as well as I do, atmospheres matter in this sport, because the human element, when you're talking about 5 human beings versus 5 human beings, is so demonstrative in this sport in particular, comparatively to, college football or NFL or whatever other sports are kind of in this ether.
And I'm so glad that you were mentioning the home court advantage as well, because over the last few years, it feels like you could choose to absolutely nothing else. You don't follow college basketball. You're a basketball know-nothing, but you just decide, hey, I'm going to fire up on the home teams in the Big Ten. You probably would have made a god ton of money. And how much do you just take a look at the atmosphere from conference to conference? Because we're going to get Metro Atlantic Conference play getting started, and there are some teams that they take the subway in order to be able to get to a road game. And then in the Big Ten, sometimes you have to go from, the great state of New Jersey on over to California. And I feel like gauging home court advantage is something that needs to be done on its own sort of merits. And I think that anyone that tries to do a boilerplate number for home court advantage is really doing themselves a disservice, because some are much bigger than others.
Yeah, there's going to be places like, for example, the Players Era tournament, in my opinion, which had no atmosphere to speak of, no real kind of element. It was like a true neutral site affair where you have one team playing against another team. And yeah, there were some traveling differences that certainly made an impact, especially when you look at a team like a Maryland, for example. But I think ultimately, when you're talking about these true road games, yes, not every single, arena is going to be Michigan State's arena, or is going to be, Auburn, the Jungle, or, one of these kind of crazy, venues that packs in a lot of students and gets crazy loud. But there are some that are very, very sneaky. There are are some that are very, very blunt to me. And I think if you're applying the same type of weight to every single home environment, to your point, you are definitely doing yourself a disservice, and you're way behind the 8 ball in terms of finding those really pockets to bet on.
No doubt about it. I think that is so good to be taking a look at this time of year, as we've got Rob Donaldson of Underdog Fantasy joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops. And Rob, we don't necessarily have a big slate of games that's going to be coming up for Monday, but we do have a few interesting ones. And I do think that it's going to be interesting to see what we get moving forward on this Villanova team, who's right now a 14.5-point favorite against Temple. This is an old Philly 5 matchup, and Temple obviously is not going to have to travel too much for this game, but I take a look at the spot and it just feels like a few too many points for a Villanova team that was without Duke Brennan in their last game. I would have to think that he's good to go, but that's a big giant mystery, and even if he does play, Temple's going to lose the battle on the glass, but this just feels like too big of a number in my opinion.
It's one of those games where, when we were doing the conference previews and we were talking about the American Conference, we talked about a lot of year 2, year 3 head coaches that could potentially have a real resurgence or have a surge up from just being kind of stagnant from where they were. And Temple and Adam Fisher were one of those teams that I kind of highlighted as potentially being a blossomer. But, in the early goings, and maybe this is going to change as the season goes on, I've been very, very unimpressed with Temple. And there's a lot of different areas in which I was kind of unimpressed, whether it was, consistent scoring, consistent rebounding, just playing overall defense was an ultimate struggle against Rhode Island, San Diego, against Princeton, Boston College. And I do feel like when you've already seen that so many times against quality enough mid-majors to have an idea of how they might stack up against Villanova here, I do actually think that Villanova can lay this number and win it pretty handily, especially with this being at home in Villanova's home arena.
Yep, and I do think that it's going to be interesting to see if this Temple team can do anything on the glass whatsoever. Never really generate second and third chances, and they're very much based around three-point shooting, and they didn't necessarily bring in the world's greatest three-point shooters, so that's a little bit of an element to be taking a look at. And I take a look at the 17.5 that Cincinnati's laying. I think we might be a little bit more in agreement here that this just feels too much. Cincinnati actually quite good on defense. I will give them that. I don't know why they have sped up their tempo. Total is 145.5. I think Cincinnati's looking in the mirror and wondering why they sped up their tempo as well. They've been playing a little bit more slowly. Take me through this one, because I look at Tarleton State, and yeah, it's not a team that's necessarily going to blow you away with a great offense, but they've been much better there, and I feel like Tarleton State is just being disrespected against the Cincinnati team that last we saw them lost at home in embarrassing fashion to Eastern Michigan.
Yeah, and I will say, you and I both love a really good underdog, especially when a line is overinflated. Now, I will say, this is actually one where we're battling each other again, Greg, I think, because I'm actually going to be taking Cincy, and the big reason why is because before every single holiday, especially when you're talking about a home game where the fans aren't really present, which they were not present against Eastern Michigan, sometimes you just fall flat on your face. And obviously, that was a game right before Thanksgiving. That was on Wednesday, the day of, where they lost to Eastern Michigan last time out. And how does a team with a lot of veterans and also a lot of talent respond to getting embarrassed? I mean, that's a game where you don't have to know the spread to know that you're a massive favorite, and to go out there and get absolutely curb stomped. It wasn't even like, Eastern Michigan snuck it out at the end. They blitzed them from the outset. It was a blowout, and I do think that when you look at Cincinnati and how they played against, say, Dayton early on, or even West Carolina out the gate, or even NJIT, who was kind of playing sparky in spots, that's more so in line where I think Cincinnati is going to be for most of the season against inferior competition because of the guards that they have. And for that reason, 17.5, it almost kind of feels like a discounted price based on the last result, and I'm actually willing to lay it here with the Bearcats in a pretty big number.
With Cincinnati, you just never know what you're going to get out of Kirk Reese. They could win this game by 30, and they could lose outright once again. That's a Kirk Reese experience, ladies and gentlemen, so we'll see what we get there. And then I want to highlight this game because it involves two teams that should be seeing some regression, and it's sort of gauging that regression. Delaware is right now shooting 52+% from three-point range at home. Iona is allowing teams to shoot 26% from three-point range overall. overall. It's a good old situation of something's got to give. Iona's a 1.5 point favorite. Want to get your thoughts here because I just landed on the Iona side because I figured that Delaware's not going to continue to shoot that way from three. Iona's not going to continue to defend the three like that. But the other things like Delaware's in terms of generating turnovers, offensive rebounds, what have you, just not a team that I really wanted too much of a part of here.
Yeah, I do not blame you for wanting to back Delaware. I mean, this is a team that lost to Wilmington, not UNC Wilmington.
Delaware Wilmington.
Division II. Delaware Wilmington. And it wasn't close either. Delaware got blitzed from the outset, and they stayed behind for all 40 minutes. And I do think that when you watch Iona this year, they've actually looked relatively good and like upside heavy. But at the same time, I look at a 1.5 point line, knowing what I know about these two programs so far this season. And I'm asking myself, like, why is the line here? This is one of the ones where you either, I think, take Delaware blindly because somebody knows something somewhere, or you just flat out stay away. And personally, I am choosing that latter option.
I do not blame you there. And hey, we've got a game between two winless teams between South Carolina State and Chicago State. Throw out the record books for that one as well. But anything else jumping out, whether that be our good friend Chicago State or something else for Monday?
You know, I think there's a really fantastic game in the nightcap where a big-time underdog is actually having a chance to win outright, and that is Cal Baptist over Colorado. I love this Cal Baptist team. Every single time I've watched them, I bet against them once. That was a flat-out mistake against UC Riverside. And the other two times that I've backed this Cal Baptist team, it kind of feels like they're starting to find it after a lot of years of just kind of being in the middle of the Big West. It finally feels like they have a roster that can take over the Midwest, potentially alongside, or the Big West rather, alongside like a UC San Diego this season, with UC Irvine potentially being a little bit more down. And for that reason, at a 10.5 point line, a lot of people might be inclined to bet Colorado, but Colorado State is on deck for Colorado. There's always kind of that look ahead spot with these types of rivalry games. And also Colorado is coming off of their MTE where they were traveling out to that. They are traveling back. This is the first game back since that MTE. And I do feel like that opens the door in a lot of ways for Cal Baptist to actually win this thing outright. And they're a 10.5 point dog. They're a plus 500 favorite in some spots. I really do like them here on Monday.
And Cal Baptist allowing teams to rebound only 18% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound. That's tied with West Virginia, number one in the country. Colorado shooting over 42% from three. They're doing for regression. We'll say Cal Baptist still in the whack for one more year before they head out to the Big West, but that means that they might be able to make their first ever NCAA tournament this year as well. So I'm right there with you on Cal Baptist. I'm not going to quite go money line, but I'm with the points on you there, banking on a bit of regression for Colorado. And a man that never regresses, a man that always fires on all cylinders. That'd be you, Rob. You do such a tremendous job gauging this great game of college basketball. Let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Well, hey, Greg, I love talking hoops with you, my man, and I'm glad that we're going to be continuing to do this throughout the season because we're going to be a little much more about these teams, really just honestly this week alone. And for those who want to follow my college basketball bets on a night-to-night basis, you can do so on my YouTube channel at Rob Donaldson and also on my Twitter/X page at RobDFB. But as always, Greg, I appreciate having me on, my man.
It is always great to be able to get Rob aboard every single time he joins me. He lends such great insights, and he did so once again today. So big thanks to Rob for joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Monday as we hit some main shots.
Paid for by government. It's here, our biggest savings week of the year. Black Friday and Cyber Monday have been rolled into one massive savings event, now through December 3rd at government.com. For a limited time, enjoy buy more, save more site-wide deals on a huge selection of gold and silver coins, plus free shipping on every order. And don't forget about our doorbuster deals. Starting December 1st through December 3rd, our Cyber Monday has incredible doorbuster deals. It's the perfect chance to build your vault or shop for unforgettable holiday gifts. Choose from American gold and silver eagles, brilliant gold and silver bars, ancient treasures, and classics like the Morgan Silver Dollar. bestseller. There's something for every collector. And remember, every order ships free, delivered straight to your door, guaranteed. Don't wait. These deals won't last long. Visit govmint.com for great deals on gold and silver. That's govmint.com. Government.com.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. It's always a pleasure to be joined by Rob Donaldson, who does such great work with the show/podcast Rob's Best Bets, does a tremendous job over at Underdog Fantasy as well. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights. He did so once again today. So a big thanks to Rob for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Monday as we hit some big shots.
Most financial establishments close at a certain time, but not here. It is time for a side and total on every game on today's betting board bank shots.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @GUnit_D1. Much easier to go in Las Vegas rotation order because we don't have any of the funky tournaments. The games involving two major conference teams are going to be at the top, and then games involving teams from these conferences are going to be at the bottom. The Southland, the Atlantic Sun, along with the Northeast Conference, and the MEAC. There's a few others, but those conferences are not in action today. So let's get things started with 871, 872. It is Temple. We give our ode to Lane Kiffin. Go Owls there on the road against Villanova. Villanova is a 14 to a 14.5 point favorite, and your total is between 149.5 to a 150.5. Set a total of 149. I like the under. For Temple, this is a very efficient offense, but it's not necessarily a fast one, and I just don't think that you're going to get a lot of possessions in this game. Villanova under Kevin Willard, they're right now 318th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Temple's about 254th, and for this Villanova team, they should do a nice job on the glass. Duke Brennan has been able to pull in there over 13 rebounds per game, so he's certainly going to be able to give them a good edge, but I'm still willing to take the points with Temple in this ordeal. I mean, you've been able to have a lot of production with Bryce Lindsey supplying this Villanova team with 19 points, and he's right now shooting 47.5% from three-point range, but this is a squad as well that has left a little bit of something to be desired down low outside of Duke Brandon. They're outside the top 100 in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. Right now, they're allowing teams to shoot over 41% from three. We should see a little bit of positivity with that. I don't think that that's going to be long-lasting, but I mean, you do have a little bit of mixing and shaking with Devin Askew giving you 8.5 points per game. I know that you've had Matthew Hodge be able to do a nice job stepping in. He's been able to give you about 12.5 points per game, and Brandon has dealt with a little bit of ailment. This is a man that missed the team's most recent game. Now, it's sounding like he should be good to go in this one, but that's something that you want to check in on, and even if he does go, is he going to be 100%? And then on the Temple side of things, you've got Jordan Mason, who's been able to give you 10.5 points. He's shooting 40% from three. AJ Smith is right now shooting 44% from the outside, and they brought in a lot of guys that at the previous stops, they weren't necessarily amazing three-point shooters, like an Arian Ford. He comes over from Arkansas State, where last year he shot 32% from three, career about 34.5% three-point shooter. He's right now leading the way with 16.5 points per game. Temple, not a team that's going to give you a lot of second or third chances, as right now they are outside the top 300 in terms of percentage of their missed shots that result in an offensive rebound. Now, doing a great job on the defensive glass. Top 25 team in terms of not allowing second and third chances. They don't force any turnovers at all. Temple outside the top 345 in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis, but a top 20 team in terms of taking care of the ball. So they sort of play a make it a take it sort of style. And again, with a little bit of question around Brandon, I do think that causes for a little bit of strife, but still, I do think that Temple going to be able to hold in there, and I do think that both of these teams see improvement with their three-point shooting defense. Temple also allowing teams to shoot 38.5% from three, so set a total of 149. I like the under and the points here with Temple. Go L's, 873, 874 on the card. It is Tarleton State, and they're going to be on the road against Cincinnati, and yes, we are on to Cincinnati, who's on to being a 17.5 point favorite. Totals between 143.5 to a 145.5, and I said Cincinnati's a 10.5 point favorite. I'm going to be willing to take the points. With kicking Jizzle James off the team during the summertime, this Cincinnati offense has been terrible. 240th in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, and for some reason they sped themselves up at the beginning of the season. They're right now 57th in terms of total possessions per game. Now, we've seen them slow down by about 5 possessions per game fewer over the last 3 games, and I think that they're returning to their roots, because right now you've got Kirk Reese as your main point guard, and that's not great. 5 assists per game, but still a little bit of a knucklehead out there on the court. You've got Day Thomas, who shot it well. He's been able to give this team 13 points. He's giving you 51% three-point shooting, and then you've dealt with a little bit of ailment to Baba Miller. I think they should be able to go on this one, but even if he doesn't, you got Mustafa Team down low. We should be able to control the boards, 2 blocks, 7.5 rebounds per game, but they face off against the Tarleton State team that has much improved on offense. They are now a top 150 team in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. After season ago, they were outside the top 360, and it's a Cincinnati team that's right now outside the top 255 in terms of ball security, and Tarleton State, top 55 team in terms of generating turnovers. So Cincinnati, a top 50 team in terms of generating turnovers as well. So I think that this is going to be a sloppy Joe sort of game, and Tarleton State, they themselves turn the ball over 15 times per game, but they bring in a highly touted guy in Dior Johnson, who's actually been playing a 6-man role, but off the bench is giving the team 23.5 points per game, shooting 64% from 3. That'll be coming back downward a little bit, and this is going to be a Tarleton team that is going to lose the battle on the glass. Right now, you've only got one guy to give you over 4.5 rebounds per game, Christian Backba, who's been able to give you 10.6 boards, a little bit over a block per contest. Freddie X just continues to produce for this team. He's been able to give the team 12 points per contest, but he's been dealing with a little bit of injury as well. But that said, I do think that with having a little bit more out of Andy Sigskar, who's been able to give you 5.5 points for a team that has had quite a few ailments, that's just a Tarleton style because they are a very rough and tumble team that they're going to be able to hold in there. And I think that Cincinnati starting to slow things down, getting it through their skulls that what they were doing towards the beginning part of the season just not going to be successful for them. So my total 140.5. I like the under and the points here with Tarleton State. 875, 876 on the card. It is Iona. They are on the road against Delaware, and the Blue Hens are a 1.5 to a 2.5 point home underdog. Total on this game 158.5. I think that this is a situation of something's got to give in terms of three-point shooting for really both of these teams. As for Iona, right now they are allowing teams to shoot 26.4% from three-point range. That'll be going northward. Delaware is right now shooting 40.9% from three and 52.4% at home against D1 foes because they had a game against a non-D1 team where they were just as cold as an igloo, but I think that is going to regress as well. So I think that you get something in the middle here. As a result, I set a total of a 157. I'm going to be willing to dive in on the under, but I do like Iona in this ordeal because this is a Delaware team that's just not doing the little things right now. This is a squad that is in the bottom 20 in the country in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis. They're in the bottom 35 in terms of offensive rebound percentage. They only grab about 8.5 offensive rebounds per game. Now, have to like what you've been able to get out of Justin Fernandez when he's been out there on the court, as he was a guy that came over from George Mason and Providence, 13 points, 3.5 assists per game, but it's all been about Christian Bliss. He is very blissful, 14 points, 7 assists, shooting 39.5% from three-point range, but he just doesn't have a ton down low. Tyler Hauser, who began his career over at VMI, 13 points, 5.5 boards. That's been pretty rock solid. And Macone Emery has been able to give you about 8 rebounds per game as well. But I mean, it's a very top-heavy team as of right now. Kevon Riley, who's one of their main holdovers from a season ago, is dealt with injury, so that's been a little bit rough. And on the other end for Iona, you've got a mix and shake team with Dan Groh coming over from the New Orleans Pelicans, and he has found a gem in CJ Anthony, who couldn't get out there on the floor for Cincinnati, but I mean, this guy's right now supplying 15 points, 6 assists. He's shooting 40% from 3. Toby Harris shooting 44.5% from the outside, and Iona's right now shooting 38% from 3. That should take a little bit of a fall off. They're allowing a lot of second and third chances. They've been outside the top 3 in terms of their own defensive rebound percentage, but I trust in their rebounding a little bit more than that of the Delaware rebounding, as you've been able to get some good production out of Lamont Solaby, who's been able to give you 8 rebounds per game, and then Alou Fall has not really been too much of a rambunctious scorer with only about 3.5 points per game, but 6-foot gentleman that comes over from Sweden. He's been able to give the team 4 boards per contest. Iona doing an okay job taking care of the ball, about 12.5 turnovers per game. Not great, not terrible, but that said, I do think that Iona going to be able to cool down this Delaware team, a Delaware team that's in a lot of transition, and I think that the overall size around the perimeter of Iona allows them to get the job done. Did set Iona as a 5-point favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay the 1.5. Like the under, I set my total at a 157. 877, 878 on the card. UAB is on the road against Middle Tennessee. Middle Tennessee is a home underdog of 2.5 points on this game, between 155.5 to a 156.5, and set a total of 159.5. I do like the over. You've got a Middle Tennessee team that is playing much faster than they have in past years. Typically, this is more of a mid-tempo team, not super duper fast, not super duper slow. Right now, they're checking in about 186th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. They were really cranking things up in the first few games, but then they played against McNeese. That slowed things down a little bit more, so I do think that that'll be picking up a little bit more. And for this UAB Blazers team. Year in and year out, they are a team that typically pushes a little bit more tempo, and right now with UAB, they're checking in 91st in the country in terms of total possessions per game. To the credit of UAB, this is a top 30 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis. They already turn the ball over about 9.5 times per game. They cannot shoot worth a lick from three-point range. They're right now shooting 27.9% from three. Now, they're allowing teams to shoot only 27% from the outside, but I think that there's going to be negative regression there. This should be a team that's pretty rock solid on the boards, as you got Evan Chapman give you 8.5 boards, 7 points per game. And I still remember Cameron Lindsay, when he left Georgia many years ago, he was actually that team's top rebounder as a freshman for the time that he was out there. Chance Westry has a little bit of upside, began his career over at Syracuse, I believe Kansas as well, 17 points, 4.5 boards, 4.5 assists, 2 steals per game, but are just lacking that three-point shooting oomph with regards to UAB. For this UAB team, they also have been outside the top 200 in terms of opponents' two-point shooting percentage, and this is a Middle Tennessee team that I think is going to be able to do a nice job in terms of being able to find some second and third chances. They're right now grabbing about 13 offensive rebounds per game, with having just a mix and match style with someone like a Kamari Lands, who's been in college basketball for a long time, 13 points, 4 boards, shooting in the mid-30s from three. You've been able to have Chris Lufay be able to give you about 4.5 boards, 8.5 points per game. And then the main guy has been Torrey Ellison. He has not attempted any threes this year. He's 6'7", 6'8", is capable of being able to do so, but they've been utilizing him much more down low. He's been able to give this team 11 points per game. It's a Middle Tennessee team that, unlike in past years, are not generating turnovers. They're well outside the top 3 returns to turnovers force on a per possession basis, but they, just like UAB, are allowing teams to shoot 27.1% from three. I think both are doing for a little bit of negative regression there, but in the end, I do trust in this Middle Tennessee team a little bit more, especially out there on their home floor. It's a UAB team that is giving up 14.7 points more per 100 possessions away from home rather than at home, and Jevin Carter has been a nice X factor for Middle Tennessee as well, giving them 3.5 assists per game. So did say Middle Tennessee's a 3.5 point favorite. I like them outright on the money line, and set a total of 159.5. I like that over 879, 880 on the card. Kansas State is going to be playing host to Bowling Green. Bowling Green, an underdog of 11.5 to 12.5 points. The last game, it is 159.5, and set a total of a 155.5. I'm going to be in on the under. I do think that Kansas State, who's currently shooting 42% from three-point range, is going to see a little bit of negative regression with that. You got a Bowling Green team that has been very good in terms of generating turnovers, by the way. They are number 2 in all of college basketball turnovers forced on a per possession basis. That'll be a little bit rough on a Kansas State team that's hovering between 240th and 250th in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis on offense, with Javonte Campbell being that main headliner for Bowling Green. 17.5 points, 4 steals per game. It's a Bowling Green team that has had Mayor Wool come over from Eastern Kentucky at 6'7". He's given them good versatility. 13 points, a steal. The 56% three-point shooting should see a little bit of a fall, but Javon Ruffin, who comes over from Colorado, he's been able to give you about 10 points, shooting 40% from three-point range, but do have some concerns with this Bowling Green team, and I'm going to be willing to lay it with Kansas State. This is a Bowling Green team that just allows a lot of three-point shots in general, as this is a Kansas State squad that, even though they should be experiencing a little bit of regression, this is still going to be one of the better shooting teams in all of college basketball. And for Bowling Green, they're allowing about 46% of opponents' field goal attempts to come from three. PJ Haggerty is just one of the best scorers in all of college basketball, 26.5 points, 5 boards, 5 assists, shooting 37.5% from three. And then David Castillo and Nate Johnson, both are shooting above 46.5% from three. Again, should see a little bit of fall off there, but a combined 25 points per game, and I think that Kansas State is going to be able to find a way to do a nice job on the glass, as both of these teams have had a little bit of a tough time pulling in their offensive rebounds. Johnson, right now your top guy for Kansas State with about 6 rebounds per game. They just don't have a ton of size. They're looking to someone like a Kamari McGriff, who's able to give you about 10 points, 3.5 rebounds per game for a little bit more down low. But I do think that Kansas State as well, even though the three ball may not work for them, they still do a nice job being able to drive to the hole. They do a nice job in terms of as well generating turnovers themselves. They've been a top 125 team in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis. Kansas State has been playing quite a bit more up-tempo than they have in past years, by the way. They're about 35th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Bowling Green, they're fast, but they're not necessarily like playing at warp speed, about 150th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. I do think that there's going to be dead possessions on both sides with both teams generating turnovers, and in the end, I do think that Kansas State, even with a little bit of three-point shooting regression, finds a way to get the job done here. Made a total of a 155.5. I like the under, and I'm going to be willing to lay up to 15 with Kansas State, 881, 882. It is Cal Baptist on the road against Colorado. Colorado is a double-digit favorite here of 10.5 points. Your total is anywhere between 148.5 to 149.5, and with Colorado, set them as a 9.5 point favorite. I'm going to be able to take the points with Cal Baptist. I have to fear a little bit of a letdown for a Cal Baptist team that went on the road to Corvallis. They were able to get a very good win for the resume against Oregon State, but they played without Dominic Daniels 2 games ago against San Diego. Got the job done there. He's back in the lineup, 18 points, 4.5 assists. Wasn't fully 100% in that game against Oregon State. His eyes still a little bit shut. He took a little bit of shiner in a game against Grambling, but he should still be rock solid here for this one. And then Martell Williams, this is how he does it. Shooting 44% from 3, 15.5 points, 5.5 boards. Cal Baptist has been pretty solid in terms of being able to win the turnover battle, but where they are really humming is on the glass. This team is allowing 6.5 offensive rebounds per game. They're a top 20 team in terms of defensive rebound percentage. They're a top 40 team in terms of percentage of their own missed shots that result in an offensive rebound. And this is a Colorado team that they do have quite a bit of size. You've got 6'10" Elijah Malone, 6'10" Banu Doc, 6'9" Alan Michelli, guys like this, but yet they're not really doing the world's greatest job on the boards. They're outside the top 200 in terms of percentage of their missed shots that result in an offensive rebound, and their 42% three-point shooting, I just don't think it's sustainable. Isaiah Johnson has been great as a freshman, 6th man that's giving you 15 points per game, shooting 57% from 3. That'll see a little bit of a fall-off. Barrington Argertz was a 20-point per game scorer over at UC Riverside. He's really been the main facilitator for the team, 12 points, 5.5 assists, shooting 50% from 3. Can he shoot 40? Sure. I don't think that he's going to continue to shoot 50. Elijah Malone is someone that has some size. He's right now shooting 75% from 3. Again, fall off there. 8.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, but I do think that having someone like Brady Henjai on the flip side for Cal Baptist, a true 7-footer, that doesn't give you a lot of scoring with 5 points per game, but all of a sudden there's 6 rebounds per game. You've had Jane Jackson be a little bit in and out of the lineup, but when he's been in, the Northern Arizona transfer has been able to give you 9 points, 5.5 rebounds per game. Likely going to be out once again for this game, but in his absence, we've seen Jordan Mueller really be able to pick it up. He had a nice game against Oregon State, and I do think that this Cal Baptist team does a very nice job of holding in there on the glass, and right now Cal Baptist allowing teams to shoot 26% from 3. Again, probably should see a little bit of fall off there, but they've been one of the best teams at running teams off the three-point line over the last few seasons as well. They set a total of a 149.5. Right now seeing that 148.5. That's pretty much my max buy point on the over, but we'll take it over and we'll take the points here with Cal Baptist. 883, 884 is the last game on the normal Las Vegas betting board before we hit the extra games. Portland is on the road against Stanford. Stanford is a 16.5 point favorite. 155.5 to 156 is the total. Made a total of a 153.5. I do like the under for Portland. This is typically a team that likes to play at warp speed, and they're playing fast once again. I wouldn't say that they're necessarily gunning it per se, though. They're hovering right around about 60th in the country in terms of total possessions per game, and we've seen Stanford actually crank up their tempo quite a bit this year as well. Last year they were well outside the top 240 in terms of total possessions per game. They were more around 100th, but this is a Stanford team that I think is going to force Portland into quite a few mistakes. I did set my line here at 18.5, so I'm going to be willing to lay it with Stanford. As for Portland, 15.5 turnovers per game, outside the top 300 in terms of ball security. They've been shooting about 31.5% from 3. They lose a lot of their key pieces from the season ago. Now the freshman Joel Foxwell has really been able to step up and be a do-it-all guy. 15 points, 6 assists, 5.5 boards, shooting 39.5% from 3-point range. And Makai Balu, he's been able to give you about 36% three-point shooting, throwing there 11.5 points per game. But this is a team that, even though you've got essentially 5 different guys that give you at least 4.4 rebounds per game, they just don't hone their second and third chances for themselves. They're outside the top 300 in terms of percentage of their missed shots that result in an offensive rebound. And on the flip side for Stanford, this is not the same rebounding team that they were a season ago in terms of grabbing second and third chances, but they are not allowing you to get second and third chances either. Top 15 team in terms of defensive rebound percentage. They've been a top 75 team in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis, and one of the most underrated freshmen in all of college basketball on this team, Abuka Okore, who's been able to give you 23 points, 4 boards, 2 steals, 3 assists, shooting in the mid-30s from 3. Benny Geeler has been in the system for a while. He's shooting 46% from 3. For Stanford, they are allowing teams to shoot about 36% from 3. I think we should see some positive regression there. Teams are shooting 78% at the free throw line, as well as a bottom 10 mark in all of college basketball. They should see a little bit more luck and promise there, and they don't allow live ball turnovers. Teams are generating just 3.6 steals per game against Stanford, so even though they might turn the ball over, it doesn't lead to like fast break opportunities or anything like that. So I do think that that's going to help a little bit more with regards to the defense. Stanford should be able to just dominate the glass in this game. They've been doing this all with Ryan Archibald being a big disappointment. Return from last year, only about 4.5 points, less than 4 rebounds per game. But Chisa Mokpara, 4.5 boards at 6'8". He gives you some nice versatility. He's been able to supply the team with 15.5 points, a little bit over steal per contest contest. Do think that Stanford forces Portland into quite a few turnovers, so set a line of 18.5, willing to lay with Stanford, and I'm going to be in on this total under as well. And now we hit the extra games.
The normal betting board picks are complete, but there are some extra games today, so we go into the bonus.
306,599, 306,600. You've got Chicago State playing against South Carolina State. South Carolina State, a 2.5 point underdog, a 149.5 to 150.5 is the total. Set total of 155.5. I do like the over. Both of these teams are outside the top 300 in terms of both points scored and points allowed on a per possession basis. And you do have a South Carolina State team that likes to gun it. They're currently in the top 75 in terms of total possessions per game. Chicago State is in your number one in Orlando Busey. He comes on over from Alcorn State, so they're not quite as explosive. They're more of a mid-tempo team, 184th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. But for South Carolina State, even though they are returning a few pieces that were banged up towards the beginning part of the season, they had a very deep team a season ago, and they had to replace just so much of that depth from a year ago. You've been able to get good guard play out of Jaden Johnson, who's one of the main holdovers from last year, about 3 assists, 8 points per contest, and Rayno Wright has been able to help out in terms of doling out good, clean offense, 6 points, 3 assists per game. But still, this is a South Carolina State squad that is turning the ball over about 15.5 times per game. And if there's one thing that Chicago State has done okay, it's generate turnovers. Top 165 team in terms of turnovers force on a per possession basis, and it's a South Carolina State team that's just getting flattened on the glass. They're well outside the top 320 in terms of rebound percentage. Owen Bronston is a lone guy that's able to give you double figures with about 13.5 points per game, but South Carolina State also allowing 89.8 points per game. That's not great to say the least. By the way, neither team has a win in this game, so that makes things a lot of fun. And Chicago State is allowing 87.5 points per game, but they do have a nice go-to scorer, Marcus Ankersley. He comes on over with Landon BC from Alcorn State, 15.5 points. He's only shooting about 30% from three. Chicago State as a whole, they only shoot 30% from the outside, but Braylon Bush, who shot nearly 40% from three per review, should be able to heat up. He's been able to give the team 9.5 points per game. You've got essentially 5 different guys for the team, including Doyle Cockrell, who's been dealing with an injury, that's been able to give the team at least 9 points per contest. I do think that for Chicago State, they do generate a few turnovers, utilize that to be able to get some fast break layups. And for Chicago State, by the way, out of 365 Division I teams, 365th in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. So do think that you get a nice high-scoring expose in an early AM game, semi-line at 7.5. I'm willing to lay with Chicago State, and I'm in on the over. 306-601, 306-602. McNeese is on the road against Incarnate Word, and the Word is a 6.5 to a 7.5 point home underdog. Total on this game, it is 148.5 and set a total of 143.5. I do like the under. Now, Incarnate Word is well outside the top 275 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, but they're playing super slow. 328th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. McNeese was a super slow team a season ago, and they've sped themselves up a half a hair, but they're about 247th in the country in terms of total possessions per game as well. And you may go back to the McNeese team from the season ago. They were actually a top 40 team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. I don't know if they quite get back there this season, but you have a few holdovers from last year. Javon Garcia, 13.5 points per game. He's not necessarily going to be a guy that gives you overly much versatility in terms of doling it out, but he's shooting 45% from three. He's running their 2 steals per game. McNeese has always been a good team in terms of generating turnovers. Right now, a top 25 team in terms of turnovers force on a per possession basis. Tyshawn Archie, he's been able to come in and he's been able to give the team 13 points per contest after he was a nice guard over at Tulsa a season ago. And then Gawari Duel, he's been very versatile. 8.5 points, 5 assists, 2 steals, just doling out good, clean offense for a bunch of McNeese that does a really good job in taking care of the ball. Top 75 team in terms of ball security. We've got an Incarnate Word team that they're only turning the ball over 9.5 times per contest as well. Davion Bailey and Taj Stavosky, these guys have been really good in the backcourt. They're combining for 39 points per game. Stavesky has been able to shoot about 38 to 39% for 3-point. Incarnate Word as a whole shooting 41% from the outside. That should see a little bit of regression, but this is also an Incarnate Word team that's been a top 75 unit in terms of defensive rebound percentage and offensive rebound percentage, so they're doing a good job on the glass. You've had Harold Woods come over from Northeastern. He's been that main man down low, 9.5 points, 8.5 rebounds per game. Doesn't necessarily have a ton of size, though, at 6'8", so that's going to take a little bit out of them. But Jaden Williams, even though he's been a little bit in and out of the lineup, when he's been out there, he's been able to give the team a little bit of rough and tumble down low. 6'7", Jordan Pike shoots 38.5% for 3 with 13 points per game. It's a something's got to give battle. Incarnate Word good at taking care of the ball. McNeese, very good at generating turnovers. I think that McNeese is just a half a hair better than Incarnate Word. I think that Incarnate Word sees regression with that 3-point shooting. So set a line of 7.5. I'm willing to lay 6.5 with McNeese. Semi-total of 143.5. So almost win on the under. 306.603, 306.604. You've got Jacksonville State playing us in North Alabama. North Alabama, 4.5 to a 5.5 point underdog. 134.5 is the total, and set total of 138.5. I do like the over with North Alabama. They're about 290th in the country in terms of total possessions per game, and Jacksonville State is always one of the slowest teams in all of college basketball, 335th in terms of total possessions per game. But that said, you should be able to get good, clean possessions in this game. The Gamecocks are 278th in turnovers forced on a per possession basis. North Alabama is 315th, and for this North Alabama team, they're just allowing so many second and third chances. They are currently outside the top 325 in terms of defensive rebound percentage. Over 37.5% of opponents' missed shots do result in an offensive rebound. This despite the fact that Cornelius Williams has been a nice dominator down low. 13.5 points, 10.5 rebounds per game, but I did set a line of 4.5. I'm going to be willing to take those points because I do think that this team is able to get some good offense with Kevin Divakovic, hopefully I said that correct, giving you 14.5 points, shooting 42% from three. The international man of mystery has been able to help out as they get Dallas Howell back after he only played in 3 games last season due to injury, but 6 of 7 combo player that's giving 8.5 points, 3.5 boards, shooting in the mid-30s from 3-point for this North Alabama team, even though they're a squad that really doesn't generate a lot of turnovers or anything. I do think that they're going to be able to do a nice job in terms of generating second and third chances. Top 175 team in terms of their offensive rebound percentage. And for Jacksonville State, this is always a team that is very relentless on the glass. They're grabbing 14.5 offensive rebounds per game, with Mustafa El Montequil being able to give you 19 points, 7.5 boards, comes over from Louisiana. He's been rock solid there. AC Bryant, he comes on up from the SWAC. He's been able to give you 12.5 points per game. And then from there, you've got a trio of guys that give you between 7 and 8 points per game. And Emma Derrick, Erikins Ford, Jamar Franklin, and Jacoby Hill. So you've got a nice balance. And Marcus Fitzgerald, who is a double-figure scorer over at Tennessee State, still has not done a lot for the team. But if you do get into a nip-and-tuck situation, Jacksonville State is shooting just 67% of the free throw line. And Jacksonville State is right now allowing teams to shoot 24.6% from three. This is typically a good perimeter defense. They're not quite that good of a perimeter defense. I think that goes a little bit northward. I think that North Alabama sees a little bit of positivity with their shooting numbers. So set my line of 4.5 at 5+. I'm going to be willing to take the points with North Alabama. I think this is close enough for late game filling. So set a total of 138.5. I like the over. 306.605, 306.606. Troy is going to be playing us West Georgia. West Georgia is a 15.5 point underdog. Tallest game is 148 to 148.5. This at a total of 146.5. I do like the under. This is a Troy unit that is right now playing with some of the most possessions per game of any team in all of college basketball, but that's such a warp set. They had 25 extra minutes in the triple overtime game against USC and the double overtime game against San Diego State. So you're able to get a lot more possessions when you play with 25 more minutes. I think when it's all said and done, they're going to be a relatively mid-tempo team, which is where West Georgia is right now. And for West Georgia, they've got a dominant guy in Shelton Williams-Dryden. He's back from season ago after he was that top scorer last year. 19 points, 10 boards, is actually shooting 44% from three. Team as a whole is shooting 38.7% from the outside. I do think that that's going to be taking a little bit of a fall. Outside of Williams-Dryden, you have only got one other player that really does a good job hitting the glass. That would be Javar Daniel. He's been able to give you 7 points, 5 rebounds per game, but you do return a lot of those ancillary pieces from the backcourt, so the team has been able to clean up some of the turnover issues that ailed them last season. Chaz Lulis has been able to give you about 11 points, 3.5 assists per game. You've got Josh Smith right now shooting 44% from three, though. Do think that that's going to be taking a little bit of a fall. And they've been dealing with an injury to Malcolm Noel. He's one of their main holdovers from a season ago, but again, a guy that I don't think is going to be able to play in this game. And with Troy, we've already seen them go up against very, very good competition. The fact that they were able to get a little bit of a breather after that West Coast road trip, and then they have to play in a multi-team event, that is big for them as well, as the Campbell brothers have been great. Kobe Campbell, a little bit more of an ancillary guy with 9.5 points per game. Cooper Campbell has been the main scorer, 16 points, 4 boards, 5 assists per contest for a Troy team that last year was one of the worst in all of college basketball in terms of three-point shooting. Middle of the road this year at 33%, but they're doing a tremendous job of grabbing second and third chances with Thomas Dowd leading the way, 16 points, 11 boards, pair of steals per game, and Troy is still one of the best teams in generating turnovers. Top 50 team in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis. They should see a little bit of positivity with the fact that they're allowing teams to shoot 36% from three. They were a pretty okay perimeter defense last season. I'm not going to call it amazing, but with generating those turnovers, it can be a little bit feast or famine. They themselves are going to allow a lot of second and third chances on the glass as well, but in the end, I do think that Troy is going to do a nice job in terms of getting it done, generating some turnovers, and this is a West Georgia team that really outside of Williams-Dryden just doesn't have a lot of depth. So I did set my line at 16.5. I'm going to be willing to lay with Troy. And I do like the under. It's on my total 146.5. We wrap things up with 306, 607, 306, 608. Xavier is playing us to St. Francis, Pennsylvania. St. Francis, 26.5 to 27.5 point underdogs. 151.5 to 152.5 is the total. I did set a total of a 148. I'm going to be in on the under for St. Francis. The squad did go through quite a bit of a coaching change in the offseason, and for St. Francis, it has led to them being a bit more up-tempo. They're about 72nd in the country in terms of total possessions per game, but this is a Xavier team that's more mid-tempo. They're about 157th in the country in terms of total possessions per game, and if you go back to what Richard Pitino did 8 seasons ago when he was over in New Mexico, his team was very good on defense. They were a top 25 team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, and right now they're just looking to be able to do the little things right. Top 75 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis. They're generating about 13.5 turnovers per game. That's a top 175 mark. They've been good and not allowing a lot of second and third chances. Top 55 squad in terms of defensive rebound percentage, despite the fact that you've only got one guy give you more than 5.5 rebounds per game. Phil Brachevin, he comes on over with Pitino from New Mexico, and he's been a versatile piece. Only about 8.5 points per game, but 7.5 boards, 2 steals, 4 assists per game. Trey Carroll has been the main scorer with 15 points per game. The team's right now shooting 39.5% from 3. That should see a little bit of drop-off. Jovan Milasilovic is right now shooting 46% from 3-point range. He's been able to supply the team with 13 points per game. Really didn't even see great minutes when he was over in New Mexico last year. Did shoot 46% from 3 in New Mexico last season, but that was on very, very low volume. All right, that's his actual name. Has been able to give you about 11 points per game coming over from Valparaiso as well, and certainly with the St. Francis of Pennsylvania squad, it is one that is leaving a little bit of something to be desired with regards to defense. They've been one of the worst 3-point shooting defenses in all of college basketball. Again, I think that there should be a little bit of positivity to that. They're outside the top 3 in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage. They do have a nice low post piece. It's Sky Wicks, who's been able to give you 19 points, 8.5 boards, 3 assists, steal and a half per contest, shooting 37% from 3. They themselves shooting less than 30% from 3. I don't know how much of a rise you're going to see with that. Zion Russell comes on over from Niagara. He's able to give you about 11.5 points per game. And then Ahmad Harrison, he was an afterthought over at Fordham. He's come in. He's been able to give you about 8 points per contest. A little bit of a top-heavy team, but it is a St. Francis of Pennsylvania bunch that has been a top 155 team in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis. They're a bottom 50 team in terms of taking care of the ball, though, as well, with about 16.5 turnovers per game. So even though they play fast, they don't necessarily make the most out of their possession. So to set a total of 148, I do like the under end with Xavier. Going to set them as a 26-point favorite. So at 26.5 plus, going to be willing to take those points. And that'll wrap things up for the Monday edition of Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter. So as per usual, please send these into the timeline. Other way is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Big thanks to Rob Donaldson, who does great work with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets, for joining me in the last segment. And I'm with you guys every single day on this podcast, giving you guys picks and analysis on every game, every day. So I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.
The best TV comes in many forms, from real-life mysteries to blockbuster dramas, family favorites, and buzzworthy reality shows. Philo makes it easy to stream them all with one simple, affordable subscription. For just $33 a month, Philo offers more than 70 live channels, including favorites like AMC, A&E, MTV, Discovery, and Nickelodeon, plus on-demand TV like the entire AMC Plus library. Whatever the mood, there's always something new to uncover. Philo subscribers also get access to HBO Max Basic with ads and Discovery Plus at no extra cost, along with unlimited DVR that saves shows for up to a year. No long contracts, no complicated setup, just endless entertainment ready to stream anytime. Ready for a better way to bundle all the TV you love? Get started at philo.tv. That's PHILO.tv. Your next obsession is waiting.